This is the start of a new video series about understanding the economy. We're going to talk about the economy, why every economy is broken, each of the economic systems that are currently broken, and what solutions could fix these systems, and finally, a vision for the economy. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of the economy and the main different areas of the economy. You may have heard of the following saying, or a similar variant. You may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. Basically, this means that even if you don't spend any time understanding and participating in politics, politics will still have an influence on your daily life. And this saying couldn't be any more relevant and applicable to the economy. You cannot easily escape the impacts of the economy and the influence it will have on your life. This is, of course, less relevant if you live your life in isolation in a homestead outside in the wilderness somewhere. And if that's you, good on you. I mean, I'm all for it. But for everyone else, the economy moves on, and it continues to influence how everyone lives and how money, assets, and wealth flow through that system. The economy can have an impact on everything: where you live, what you eat, how you sleep, how happy or stressed you are, and even how you feel about others around you. When the economy isn't working, its impact on society can be catastrophic. People can struggle to make an income just to simply survive. If poverty and hardship increases, this is when the economic system can really start to break and fall apart. Poverty and inequality can eventually lead to hunger, poor mental health, and in some cases, even death. How is anyone going to have any belief in the economic system when the very system itself is increasingly making it difficult for them to simply survive? You don't need a university degree to work out how a broken economy that isn't working for the population can easily lead to more acts of desperation, crime, and violence. When someone no longer has a choice to do what is right, to get a job that might not even be covering basic survival, well, a number of people are going to choose to do what is necessary to survive. And can you really blame them? At some point, it can become life or death. In the world we live in today, there is not a single problem that is more important than fixing the global economy and making sure it works for everyone. There is nothing more impactful that could help with resolving so many problems, whether that's reducing poverty, crime, violence, social unrest, and even mental health issues. The good news is there are solutions that we can start to implement and then start to adopt for each one of the most broken economic systems. The bad news is the reality that it's going to take time. Fixing the economy is a long-term problem and not something that you can simply fix overnight. So, with that all in mind, let's talk about each part of the economic system. The first part of the economy is natural assets. Natural assets include land, water, air, and all natural resources like oil, gas, and metal ore. It also includes natural forces such as solar, wind, tidal waves, and air waves. These natural assets were here before any of us even existed. Economic activity that degrades our natural assets, such as soil quality or air quality, are things we need to actively prevent wherever possible. How society uses and maintains these natural assets over the long term is going to be a huge part of making a sustainable economy. The second part of the economy is public assets. Public assets are man-made, and it can include things like roads, bridges, public transport, water and sewer systems, public buildings, government data centers, and power plants. Public networks should also be included as public assets. This includes things like telecommunication networks, internet networks, and even emerging Web3 networks. These valuable pieces of infrastructure that society has built also need to be maintained and looked after over the long term. The third part of the economy is households. A household might just be an individual, or it might be a larger family of 5 or even more people. Households contribute to the economy with their labor and capital. They consume goods and services, donate to charities, and they also might save and invest in different assets or businesses. Each household will have its own belongings that they purchase or even create themselves, such as cars, electronics, clothes, tools, food, etc. The fourth part of the economy is organizations. People come together to work on things that are impactful for society. That might be creating a product, providing a service, doing charitable work, or even coming together just to play a sport. Businesses, charities, non-profits, and even local sports clubs are all examples of an organization. Ownership, governance, compensation, and incentives are all each important part of thinking about how these different organizations can be structured and operated. Organizations can have vastly different requirements from one another. Contributors can also have different preferences about how they want to participate, contribute, and be rewarded in these organizations. This means there is obviously not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach for all organizations. Organizations can be operated in many ways to better match the preferences that people have in that organization. Ultimately, it's important for organizations to be structured and operated in a way that is fair for those involved. The fifth part of the economy is government. A government is a public institution that creates and enforces laws and that also manages the public affairs of that society. A range of public services might be provided by the government, such as maintaining local infrastructure or providing education or health services. A government must ensure that both natural assets and public assets are used and maintained in a fair and sustainable manner that is going to be most beneficial for society. Taxes are used to fund public services, and this taxation system can have a huge influence on the economy. So the tax system will play an important part in sustaining the government and the economy over the long term. How people are able to vote and influence the direction of legislation and policy is also an area of significant importance. There's a lot to think about with how governments operate as a system, as well as how people are able to participate and vote in any important decisions that can influence their lives. And now, finally, the sixth part of the economy is exchange. Exchange includes the fundamental systems that help to facilitate all forms of exchange. This means things like money and free markets. People commonly exchange their time and assets with other people to mutually benefit from an exchange process. Sometimes this is for financial benefit, and the most common system we use for that is the system of money. However, exchange can also happen without the need for money. And a good example of that is commitment pools, which can be based on trust. A local community could come together and offer their time or resources in exchange for other people's time or resources in a pool of future commitments. A big part of fixing the economy and how we conduct exchange is not just fixing our existing systems, such as money, but also considering what other approaches we might be missing as well. I might make a video series on commitment pools in the future, but for now, I'll add some resources below in case you were desperate to read about them now. And that completes the 6 key areas of the economy: natural assets, public assets, households, organizations, governments, and exchange. This helps us to think about the economy and broadly all of its different areas. And now we can talk about why every economy is broken. See you soon.